asking me if I provoke her.
Well, you heard me.
You remember the exact moment. The viral footage burned into the collective consciousness of reality television. Jasmine, face contorted in pure, unadulterated rage, screaming at the top of her lungs as she physically rips off her own fake nails, hurling them like shrapnel in a meltdown over a prenuptial agreement. You were told this was a dramatic, uncontrollable reaction to broken trust. You were sold the narrative of a fiery, unhinged woman, completely losing her grip on reality over a piece of paper. But what if I told you that everything you saw in that explosive confrontation was an illusion? Think again. That entire fight, that sheer visceral panic, was staged consent designed to hide a much darker, far more intricate financial scam. I want you to close your eyes and picture a blurred wire transfer receipt from a Panamanian bank account, dated exactly 3 weeks before those cameras ever started rolling. Now, look closely at the IP login logs from Gino's allegedly hacked phone. The timeline does not match. The tears were real, but the reason was a lie. The cameras lied to you. I analyzed the psychological warfare of reality TV so you don't have to. If you want the psychological breakdown the network is absolutely terrified of, and you want to support deep investigative dives that expose what happens when the cameras stop rolling, drop a like and subscribe to the channel right now. Let's get into the files. I am not here to sugarcoat Jasmine's explosive outbursts or validate Gino's pathetic, cowering victim act. We are taking off the reality TV goggles today. We are wiping away the carefully crafted editing, the dramatic music cues, and the scripted producer prompts. We are looking directly at the raw truth of extreme financial coercion. For years, viewers have debated the toxicity of this relationship, arguing over who is using who is the abuser, and who is the victim. But what if both of those roles were carefully assigned corporate uniforms, worn to conceal a highly sophisticated financial architecture, operating entirely in the shadows? We have been programmed to watch these two through the lens of a desperate gold digger and a tragic, socially inept sugar daddy. But that is exactly what they want you to see. The reality is a labyrinth of offshore accounts, hidden assets, and a transactional dependency so deep it borders on indentured servitude. When you peel back the layers of the screaming matches and the superficial drama over lip gloss and vacation rentals, you are left with a chilling blueprint of manipulation. We need to establish a new vocabulary to understand what we are actually witnessing, because the standard definitions of love, relationship, and even toxicity do not apply here. We are dealing with textbook reactive abuse, transactional attachment, and severe financial enmeshment. Their relationship exists entirely in what psychologists call the gray zone. In this desolate space, reality is completely inverted. Jasmine's explosive anger, the tears, the screaming, the physical manifestations of stress, those are absolutely real. Her central nervous system is in a state of constant panicked overdrive, but her outbursts are a brilliant smokescreen for Gino's weaponized incompetence and his covert, iron-fisted financial control. You are conditioned to look at Gino with his nervous laughter, his awkward posture, and his signature hats, and see a submissive, harmless man completely out of his depth. He plays the bumbling Midwesterner perfectly, shrinking away from conflict, stammering through arguments, and begging for peace. But look closer at the mechanics of their daily lives. Look at who actually holds the absolute power. As the one holding the purse strings, as the sole architect of her financial survival, Gino is the apex predator in this dynamic. He dictates her housing. He dictates her body modifications, weaponizing her physical insecurities by funding them and then shaming her for them. He dictates the very legal standing of her visa. Every explosive fight they have ever had, every moment she has looked like a monster on international television, was preceded by a quiet, invisible turning of the financial screws by the man pretending to be her victim. Imagine the psychological toll of existing in a dynamic where your very survival, your immigration status, and your basic human dignity are entirely dependent on a man who treats his bank account like an instrument of torture. Gino uses a tactic known as intermittent financial reinforcement. One day, he is the generous provider, showering her with promises of luxury apartments, lavish vacations, and a life of absolute security. He builds an artificial pedestal of wealth, convincing her to burn her own bridges, to abandon her own career paths, and to rely entirely on his resources. Then, the moment she is completely dependent, the moment the trap snaps shut, the rug is violently pulled out from under her. Suddenly, the money dries up. Suddenly, there are strict budgets, missing credit cards, and agonizing delays in paying the rent. He introduces sudden, terrifying scarcity into her life, watching her panic. When she inevitably explodes under the crushing pressure of this manufactured poverty, screaming about broken promises and unpaid bills, the cameras capture a deranged, greedy woman demanding more. But they never capture the silent, calculating smirk of the man who orchestrated the entire breakdown. He creates the maze, locks the doors, removes the food, and then acts terrified when the starving rat starts biting at the cage. This is not a relationship. This is a hostage situation disguised as a romance, bankrolled by a television network that profits off the psychological deterioration of its cast members. We are watching a masterclass in coercive control, where every dollar spent is a shackle forged, and every tear shed is a deposit made into a secret offshore account that neither of them wants you to know about. But to pull off a grift of this staggering magnitude, Gino and Jasmine could not operate in a vacuum. They needed a stage. They needed a vast, impenetrable structure to shield their actual financial maneuvers from the public eye. This brings us to the scaffold. We have to look at the dark, symbiotic relationship between this couple and the towering corporate machine that broadcasts them. The network, this monolithic entity that thrives on the endless exploitation of human vulnerability, desperately needs the gold digger trope to survive. It is their lifeblood. It is their most profitable narrative, a reliable, ever-churning engine for engagement, outrage, and algorithmic dominance. So, production actively built a psychological scaffold around Gino and Jasmine. They didn't just document their lives, they trapped them in carefully constructed, hyper-pressurized scenarios specifically designed to trigger their deepest, most primal financial anxieties. Think about the environments they are constantly placed in: the sterile, astronomically priced high-rent apartments, the ostentatious vacation resorts where the bill is always looming just out of frame like a descending guillotine. The producers are not passive observers holding boom mics. They are unseen, calculating architects. They turn up the heat in a locked cabin and simply wait for the glass to crack. Notice how seamlessly the producers orchestrated the ex-sugar daddy storyline? That was not a coincidence. That was not a spontaneous, dramatic revelation caught on camera by sheer miraculous luck. It was a corporate trap, a highly calculated narrative device injected into the season to manufacture organic-looking drama. But what it really did was provide the absolute perfect camouflage for the most sinister truth of all. It masked the chilling reality that Gino and Jasmine allegedly sat down, long before the cameras ever started rolling, long before the first contract was signed, and meticulously planned this entire endless cycle of abuse and reconciliation. They weaponized their own toxic dynamic. They monetized their mutual destruction to secure a guaranteed multi-season paycheck. The ex-sugar daddy wasn't an actual threat to Gino's ego. He was a phantom, a convenient plot device agreed upon in a shadowy, untelevised negotiation to keep the audience entirely focused on Jasmine's scandalous past, instead of Gino's terrifying present financial machinations. They are co-conspirators. They are partners in a grand illusion, laughing all the way to the Panamanian bank while performing a blood sport version of romance for the unthinking masses. To maintain this illusion, the network's editing bays worked overtime, splicing footage and manipulating audio to paint Gino as the naive, love-struck, utterly harmless victim of a fiery, unpredictable Latina. They bathed him in the soft, sympathetic glow of a hapless romantic who just wants to be loved and is constantly being taken advantage of. That is dangerous, deliberate revisionist history. It is a carefully curated fiction designed to protect a man who fundamentally believes he can use money to buy human compliance. When Gino hands over a credit card, he is not offering a gift of love. He is purchasing a soul. He is buying the right to control, to demean, to isolate, and to subjugate the woman he claims to adore. And the network provides him with the perfect, multi-million-dollar alibi, framing his severe financial abuse as mere generosity that is being ruthlessly exploited by an ungrateful partner. We are watching the complete sanitization of financial tyranny, broadcast in high definition to millions of living rooms every single Sunday night. If you want to see the terrifying blueprint for this exact dynamic, you cannot just look at the current season. You have to look backward. You have to study the behavioral structures of Anfisa and Jorge from Season 4. The parallels are not just striking, they are absolutely chilling, a perfect mirror image of financial deception. Remember Jorge, projecting the grand illusion of massive, untouchable wealth? He lured Anfisa into a web of lavish promises he knew he could never keep. He created a glittering facade of limitless resources, and when that illusion inevitably shattered, when the debt collectors came calling, when the reality of his fabricated hollow empire collapsed under its own weight, Anfisa was painted as the screaming, materialistic monster. She became the ultimate reality TV villain for simply demanding the transaction that was explicitly promised to her in the beginning. Jorge, just like Gino, weaponized his fake wealth to trap a woman, and then cowardly behind the cameras, playing the terrified victim when the check bounced and she reacted to the deception. Gino is just the evolved, much more sinister, highly refined version of Jorge. He fits perfectly into what I call the transactional warden archetype. This is a specific psychological profile of a man who creates complete and total financial dependency, systematically dismantling his partner's ability to survive on her own. He locks her inside a gilded prison built of designer bags, beauty treatments, and luxury leases. And then, once the door is locked and she has nowhere else to go, he cruelly, systematically punishes her for being dependent. He demands she rely on him, and then starves the very prisoner he demanded to incarcerate. It is a sickening, entirely predictable cycle of abuse. Love bombing with money, creating the inescapable dependency trap, suddenly and violently withdrawing the resources, inciting the panicked, explosive reaction, and then playing the quiet, weeping victim for the cameras while the partner is globally vilified as a monster. But this cycle, this artificial scaffold of lies, cannot sustain itself indefinitely. The pressure inside the relationship is building to a critical mass. The financial lies are compounding daily, and the scaffolding is beginning to buckle under the massive weight of its own deception. This archetype, this historical pattern, warns us of one inevitable, inescapable outcome. When you build an empire on extreme financial coercion, hidden offshore assets, and staged reality television consent, the collapse is never quiet. It is always devastating. We are currently hurtling toward a major, catastrophic legal and financial fallout, and the tremors are already being felt in the real world, far, far beyond the reach of the network's protective editing bay. But here is the detail that absolutely no one in the mainstream commentary sphere is talking about, the single glaring anomaly that shatters the entire facade of their televised poverty. If Gino is truly this financially terrified, if he is genuinely on the brink of bankruptcy, sweating profusely over the cost of a mediocre dinner, and haggling over the price of basic apartment furnishings, then who is funding the secret limited liability company quietly registered in both of their names in the state of Florida? While millions of viewers were distracted by the screaming matches over lip gloss and the performative tears over a heavily redacted prenuptial agreement, a silent, legally binding corporate entity was being birthed in a sun-drenched, tax-lenient jurisdiction thousands of miles away from the cameras. I want you to picture the stark, undeniable reality of those incorporation documents, the crisp black ink on heavy legal paper, the signatures of both Gino and Jasmine, resting side by side, not as a warring couple on the brink of a spectacular reality television divorce, but as equal corporate partners in a covert financial enterprise. This LLC is the smoking gun. It is a hidden vault entirely disconnected from the narrative of financial abuse being fed to the public, a joint holding company that absolutely requires a steady, substantial influx of capital to maintain. You do not register a joint corporate entity with a woman you do not trust. You register it with a woman who is acting as your highly compensated business partner in a multi-million-dollar media grift. This revelation completely recontextualizes every single explosive argument we have been subjected to. It means the frantic budgeting, the crying over revoked credit cards, and the visceral panic over a lack of funds were nothing more than a masterfully executed theatrical performance, a distraction technique designed to keep the audience looking at the empty left hand, while the right hand quietly funnels reality television payouts into a shielded corporate account. And Jasmine is already preparing for the next phase of this grand illusion. The screaming, nail-ripping, chaotic reality star is about to vanish. Jasmine is allegedly on the precipice of launching a massive, highly orchestrated rebrand that will completely and utterly contradict her on-screen persona. Imagine a cinematic shift in the lighting. The bright, harsh glare of the reality TV confessional room is being replaced by the muted, sophisticated tones of a corporate boardroom. She is shedding the skin of the hysterical, emotionally volatile gold digger and stepping into the meticulously tailored suits of a cold, calculating entrepreneur. This rebrand is not a spontaneous evolution. It is the scheduled, contractual conclusion of her character arc. She allowed herself to be painted as the villain because the vilification was highly lucrative, and now that the financial scaffolding is securely in place, she is cashing out her chips and pivoting to an empire built on the very notoriety the network helped her manufacture. But the scaffolding is not just under threat from their own impending pivot. An external, devastating force is gathering in the shadows. Gino's family, who have long been portrayed on screen as passive, concerned bystanders, are allegedly preparing to step in and execute a brutal, calculated legal strike. They are no longer sitting helplessly in living rooms, watching this slow-motion train wreck unfold on their television screens. Picture the cold, polished oak tables of high-powered law firms, the meticulous assembly of forensic accountants, and the quiet, ruthless drafting of subpoenas. The family sees the Panamanian wire transfers. They see Florida LLC. They recognize that this is no longer a dysfunctional romantic relationship, but a hostile corporate takeover disguised as a marriage, threatening to drain family assets and legally entangle them in a web of international financial liabilities. They are arming themselves to completely dismantle the financial enmeshment, preparing a legal blitzkrieg designed to freeze accounts, audit the hidden LLC, and tear down the artificial structures Gino has used to maintain his absolute control. The gray zone is about to be illuminated by the harsh, unforgiving light of a federal courtroom, and the fallout will be catastrophic for everyone involved. The network's carefully constructed narrative is collapsing, and the true cost of their manufactured drama is about to be dragged into the public record. The story you were sold, the tragic tale of the awkward man and the fiery opportunist, is dead. What remains is a chilling testament to human greed, corporate complicity, and the terrifying lengths people will go to when their very survival is inextricably linked to their ability to deceive the world. I have secured the unredacted business registration documents for that Florida LLC and what they reveal about TLC's internal payroll architecture and exactly how the network funnels money to its most controversial stars is absolutely mind-blowing. It proves that the producers were not just passive observers of this financial abuse, they were the very architects who poured the concrete foundation. I am dropping that full, uncensored breakdown with all the receipts, all the IP logs, and every hidden signature this Thursday. You will not want to miss a single second of it. If you are ready to stop being manipulated by reality television editing and want to continue exposing the darkest psychological truths hidden behind the screen, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and leave a like on this video to push the truth past the network's algorithmic suppression. The grift is ending. Stay sharp, everyone.